Ask her a couple questions and we can move forward. We don't grab more. We ain't got to put it there. Respect that one. I don't want to be the only one. Where's it? I thought that's what we meant.
I thought that we had agreed that we were going to move it. Why I was asking about the same.
Yeah, see? Oh, yeah, you got it now. Okay, now you flip it. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Is that okay? Do you want to give them the money for this? It's been a year.
For me?
It's a joint public hearing. Comments said like you.
Oh, it's in lowercase?
Yeah, that worked this time.
I always forget if it's capital.
Yeah, they might have changed it. Thank you.
That money is getting spent because they're moving. Once you put it there, they're going to use it. She's going to use it. You won't see that. You won't ever see that anything. I promise you that.
Which is why, like, if we put then, you know, if this is just saying, this is the first. I
haven't heard back
we
from
get
Dan
that
yet.
much,
They're gonna
that means
file
we have
some
to put this
paperwork.
much.
I was like, you were the secretary
But there's
at
nothing
my
to be.
Elementary
There's no
school.
action.
And she goes,
Who needs to get noticed for responsibility?
Oh, Jeff Rother is in jail
kindergarten, you know?
like that.
We don't even know the ordinance on the. No, don't. If you don't mind not doing it, then if you don't want to, then it's up to you. No. Oh, yeah, I'm not ready for it. Yeah, figure that out. His drop dead date on this thing is.
No. I'm gonna be reading tonight.
Did you?
Did somebody? Oh, I forgot. I turned my ring off, so. Everybody got any ringers off? Actually, speaking of which. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 13th joint public hearing. This meeting is now called to order. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. And now we will have new business. Mr. Chris Medina, please come to the podium. I'm sorry, it is 6 o'clock, and before I start this meeting, I have not called my nephew today to tell him happy birthday. Happy birthday, David. He's watching specifically so I could tell him happy birthday on live. Happy birthday. Everyone say happy birthday, David. Happy birthday, David. Thank you. All right. Sorry about that. Thank you. Chris, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Commissioners. This evening, briefly, I will speak about the rules for the public hearing. The public hearing is an opportunity for the public to express thoughts, ideas, concerns, and opinions regarding the proposed request to the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Board. The Board of Commissioners, Planning Board, and staff will not engage in dialogue at this time. If the public has questions pertaining to the request, please contact town staff following the joint public hearing. This is the process for tonight's public hearing. Staff and the applicant will provide a general overview of the request. The Board of Commissioners will ask questions for clarification. The Planning Board will ask questions for clarification. The mayor will then open the joint public hearing. The public will make comment, and the mayor will then close the joint public hearing. Tonight, I will be presenting the Wawa Plan Development Rezoning Request, Plan Development Rezoning 2026-01. The purpose of tonight's hearing is for a proposed gas station that may be permitted by right under the, a gas station per UDO is permitted by right under current zoning regulations. The proposed use itself does not require special approval from the board. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to review the applicant's request for deviations from required design standards, and the board will consider whether the requested design standard deviations are appropriate and justified for the proposed plan development rezoning. As with all plan development rezonings, these are the standards the board must consider when making their decision per UDO section 2225J. Number one, is the rezoning is the rezoning benefit the health, safety, and welfare of the general public? Number two, is it appropriate for the location? Number three, is it reasonable within the public's interests? And number four, any other relevant factors the board may deem as appropriate. And with all conditions and deviations with plan developments, we require that they be better than the strict interpretation of what is otherwise required per the UDO standards. The site is highlighted on the image on the left of the screen here. The applicant is Capital Growth Butchalter. The property owner is Bellwood Forest LLC. The address of the property is 1300 North Arundel Avenue. The site consists of 1.76 acres. The current zoning is heavy commercial HC, and the proposed zoning is a planned development or PD zoning district. Public hearing notification. This rezoning was notified twice, the first on March 9th and the second for today, the April 13th joint public hearing meeting. Public hearing signs were posted on all frontages of the site as shown on the sign that's on the screen here. Mailed notices to property owners were sent within 750 feet of the site. A paper of the general circulation was sent 2 times in the Wake Weekly, and this project has been posted on the Town of Zebulon's website. Currently, the site is zoned as heavy commercial HC, which is highlighted on the dark red image on the screen here. The future land use map highlights this site as a general commercial or GC district. Timeline of activity, a neighborhood meeting was hosted on October 28th, 2025. The applicant first submitted this application on November 3rd, 2025. Comment letter was sent back out to the applicant on December 5th, 2025. A technical review committee meeting was held on December 10th, 2025. The second submittal was sent back to town staff on January 9th, 2026. That comment letter was sent back out on January 27th, 2026. The final submittal was sent to us on February 11th, 2026. The joint public hearing was initially scheduled on March 9th of 2026, and today is the joint public hearing for April 13th. Currently, these are the site conditions that's currently existing on the site here. And this is the overall proposed redevelopment site plan as shown on the screen here, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on it, a little further on in this presentation. The plan development narrative, the board must determine if the applicant has described the specific ways in which any modifications to generally applicable standards in this ordinance will result in a development of higher quality and would have otherwise resulted if the development was established without any proposed modifications to the standards in this ordinance. Modifications, all development in a plan development district shall comply with the development standards of Article 5 development standards and the subdivision and infrastructure design standards of Article 6 subdivisions unless modified in accordance with the section. And these are the following sections that the applicant has requested some conditions and deviations from here. Now we'll get into the uses of the site. Allowed uses shall be established in the master plan. Allowed uses shall be consistent with adopted policy guidance, the purpose of the particular plan development district, and subject to any additional limitations or requirements set forth in UDO section 4.3, use specific standards for the plan development district. Nothing shall limit an applicant from seeking to modify an otherwise applicable use specific standard in accordance with the standards in section 355B2, master plan required. This screen highlights the main use of the proposed plan development district. Rezoning, which is a convenience store of gasoline sales. The following just shows the UDO definition of a convenience store of gasoline sales. And the section that's highlighted in red highlights the part of this use-specific standard that the applicant has deviated from. And I'll get into a little more detail a little further on in this presentation. The applicant is also proposing a drive-through as an accessory use, and the number 5, that's the section that the applicant is deviating from, because with drive-through standards, we typically require that applicants abide by the mixed-use design standards. However, the applicant has requested to comply with the commercial design standards and with some conditions and deviations within those standards, which again, I'll get into a little bit more detail later on in this presentation. As well, I would like to highlight that all plan development conditions are in the plan development narrative, which was handed out in your packet as well. So now we'll get into each of the conditions that are proposed with this rezoning. The first condition is that the applicant is asking that the fuel canopy be located between the building and North Randall Avenue, and our UDO requires that gas canopies or pump islands cannot or may not be located between a building and any adjacent street right-of-way. The second condition, the applicant is requesting a dumpster enclosure will be permitted within the 25-foot rear setback of the property. However, our UDO regulations with the minimum rear setback is usually 0 feet if abutted by an alley. Otherwise, the setback must be 25 feet. The third condition, the applicant is requesting that the driveway access to Hendricks Drive will be located as indicated on the site plan here. But our UDO requires that no 2 driveway access points, whether on the same or different lots, shall be located within 50 feet of each other to the maximum extent practicable. The fourth condition, the applicant is requesting that the streetscape buffer along Hendricks Drive shall be 10 feet in width, and our UDO requires that streetscape buffers must maintain a minimum width of at least 15 feet from the lot lines, subject to those standards. The fifth condition, the applicant is requesting that the stacking requirement at each fuel dispenser will allow the vehicle in the stacking space to be rotated to permit traffic flow. And our UDO requires that for gasoline sales with principal or accessory use, that the minimum of 1 stacking space be required at each end of the outermost gas pump, but that is usually shown at more of a 90-degree angle. Sixth condition, the applicant is requesting that the primary wall or facade facing North Randall Avenue will be occupied by no less than 23% of visually transparent and or opaque windows or doors. And our UDO requires that at least 40% of the first floor portion of the primary wall is occupied by visually transparent windows or doors. The next condition, the applicant is requesting that the secondary wall facade facing Pierce's Road will be occupied by no less than 15% of visually transparent and or opaque windows and doors. And our UDO requires that secondary building walls shall be configured so that at least 30% of the ground floor facade and at least 20% of any secondary facade is occupied by visually transparent windows or doors with regular spacing, false or opaque windows with regular spacing, articulated wall forms designed to mimic window openings that also include an overhang or awning. Condition 8, the secondary wall facade facing Hendricks Drive will be occupied by no less than 15% of the visually transparent and/or windows or doors, and our UDO requires the same regulation that was presented in the previous slide here. Condition 9, the primary wall will have a horizontal modulation with recesses that are less than 10 feet deep, and our UDO requires that each individual projection or recess shall have a minimum depth of 10 feet, either beyond or inwards from the primary wall plane. Condition 10, the applicant is proposing that the primary building entrance will have 2 of the features listed in UDO section 531 F2B. The first is 1 white vertical pole to the left of the entrance that extends above the row roof lines. And the second is a 4.5-foot canopy that extends out from the primary wall and along the majority of the primary facade, both of which are highlighted in the rectangular red boxes in the screen here. And our UDO requires that, that a significant architectural feature that needs to extend above the primary roof height, and additionally a canopy, awning, portico, archway, arcade, or other covering that extends outwards from the building shall extend from outwards of the building by at least 5 feet. Condition 11, the secondary facade that's facing Pierce's Road, the applicant's proposing will not have building articulation. Our UDO requires that secondary building walls shall provide at least 1 of the building types identified in UDO section 531 F4B, types of building articulation. Condition 12, the applicant's proposing that 2 wall-mounted signs will be permitted on the fuel canopy, 1 at each side, in addition to signage posted on and above each fuel dispenser. And our UDO requires a maximum number of wall signs per development. For lots in all other districts, for single-tenant buildings, is 1 wall sign per building facade. Condition 13, the applicant's proposing that the wall-mounted signs on the primary facade and secondary facades will be permitted to exceed the standards within UDO section 511. None of the proposed wall-mounted signs will not exceed 93 square feet of sign face area. And our UDO requires that the maximum sign face area for lots in heavy commercial districts is half square foot of sign face area per lineal foot of building facade upon which the sign is located, and no individual wall sign shall exceed 64 square feet of sign face area. 14, the applicant is proposing that other than the deviations listed within this plan development narrative, the design of the building shall comply with the commercial design standards found within the Zebulon Unified Development Ordinance. And our UDO requires that these commercial design standards shall apply to new construction of any principal structures from all use types listed in the commercial and institutional use classification section of UDO Table 423, Principal Use Table. And condition 15, the applicant, as a part of this plan development rezoning, will design and finish a portion of Jones Street between Hendricks Drive and Dogwood Drive. The outcomes, if this rezoning were to be approved, would be a new convenience store, and that would result in the rezoning from a heavy commercial zoning district to a plan development district. Will allow for a new Wawa gas station with a convenience store, drive-through, pickup window, and 6 gas pumps. And the site will be developed to an alternative form other than what is prescribed in the Town of Zebulon's Unified Development Ordinance. Once again, these are the standards the board must use when making their decision for the plan development rezoning. Number one is, does it apply, is it beneficial to the general public's health, safety, and welfare? Is the rezoning appropriate for the location? Is it reasonable within the public interests? And any other relevant factors the board may deem as appropriate. And we ask that for all plan development rezonings, that conditions or deviations from the UDO are better than the strict interpretation of the standards within the Unified Development Ordinance. Staff recommends opening the public hearing for this plan development rezoning petition. After public hearing and discussion closes, refer the matter to the planning board for consideration. And now the applicant also has a presentation they would like to provide.
Thank you. Are we looking for a pointer? Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Harrison, commissioners, and members of the board. I'm Molly Stewart, Morningstar Law Group, here on behalf of our applicant, Capital Growth Buchalter, this evening. I also have with me Payman Nadimi from Wawa Real Estate. He will speak with you here in a moment. We also have, if you have particular questions for them, JP Efforth, our civil engineer, as well as Lyle Overcash, traffic engineer, both from Kimley Horn. So if you have questions for any of us, hopefully we'll be able to assist with that. Our team is very pleased to bring you this evening a proposal for this minor rezoning, as you'll see. Very much in line with what the town has already done as far as zoning for this area, as well as the planning that's been done for this section of town. And more than that, we're thrilled that this proposal is to bring a Wawa to Zebulon. Being relatively new in North Carolina and already beloved in the Mid-Atlantic states, we'd like to take just 1 to 2 minutes to share with you why this proposal is not just another gas station. And I will invite Mr. Nadimi up to tell you a little bit about that.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and Planning Board members. My name is Payman Nadimi. I am a project engineer with Wawa. Thank you for the opportunity to just speak with you for a couple of minutes about Wawa and what is Wawa. And I say this mainly for the people who are not from the Mid-Atlantic states. If you are from Mid-Atlantic, I'm sure you're very familiar with Wawa. That's where Wawa started. But the question is, what is Wawa? And the short answer is, we're more than just a convenience store. We're known for our family-like atmosphere, built to order fresh food, very competitive fuel pricing, a devotion to our community, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, and an emotional connection with our customers. Some of you may ask, well, what does that mean? I encourage you to Google weddings at Wawa, and you'll find out the emotional connection that we have with our community members. And yes, it's happened. People have had weddings at Wawas.
Okay, cool. Okay, all right, good talk.
All right, so history and culture. Wawa is actually over 100 years old. It started as a foundry in the Pennsylvania area in the 1800s. In the late 1800s, one of the founders, George Wood, opened a dairy, and for many years was a supplier of milk to the communities. In 1964, the very first Wawa convenience store opened in Folsom, Pennsylvania. And Wawa, since then, has expanded to 13 states, including North Carolina, and over 1,000 locations. The first Wawa in North Carolina opened 2 years ago. And as of now, we're up to 17 locations in North Carolina, and looking forward to bringing a location here to Zebulon. So, the commitment I'll talk a little bit about our commitment to the community. With each new store, we commit about an average of $7.5 million to the community. Many of the jobs that we hire for construction are local, based out of the community. And then long-term jobs. All companies, all stores are company-owned stores. So all our associates, and it's about 40 of them per store, are company employees, and they have full benefits, 401k, health insurance. And most important of all, you see at the bottom, a chance to participate in our employee stock ownership program. So Wawa is a privately owned company. About 40% of it is owned by the employees, and that includes the employees that work in the store and the associates that work in the store. And then we're also known for our giving back to the community through the Wawa Foundation. And you can see there a list of some of the organizations that we support. A few more of our giving back to the community offers. Any type of emergency support, Wawa is always there to help with the community. We make in-kind donations as well as participating in the food share program. And then access to fresh food. We are known for our hoagies. You see there on the bottom right. But we have all sorts of food offerings, from burgers to pizzas to chicken sandwiches. I thank you for your time and the opportunity to tell you a little bit of the Wawa story. And with that, I will ask Molly to come back up and speak about our application. Thank you very much. And I'm available here in case any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Payman. On your screen is the concept plan that is submitted as part of the plan development package, becomes part of the site's zoning. Mr. Medina has done a terrific job walking you through this plan, so I will just zoom in a bit to highlight the challenges of this site, one being the unusual shape of this lot, and probably the bigger challenge being that it faces 3 different street frontages. You should have a handout that does... You will receive a handout of the aerial of the site today for comparison. And so you'll see that there are a couple of additional driveways that exist today that would be closed under this proposal. Some changes I want to highlight from this picture are, I'll start over on the left at Pierce's Road. Today, that is a full movement driveway, meaning that people can turn left into and out of that driveway on Pierce's Road. And that can be very tricky given the short distance from that traffic light there. And so people coming out of there turning left and people turning right onto Pierce's may conflict at that location. A traffic study has been completed on this site, and coming out of that, one of the improvements will be to put a median in Pierce's Road to prevent those left turns, both into and out of the site, so that it will be right in, right out only.
All right, thank you. If you could use the laser to point so the audience can, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I now have, oh, there we go, I have the magic now. All right, so here we go. This is the median here that would prevent those left turns both into and out of the Pierce's Road driveway. So ideally we'll be improving safety and certainly clarity at that driveway. We'll also be closing 2 driveways, one located here today and one over here on Hendricks, and that will help as well. Both of those driveways are extremely close to the main intersection there and difficult to navigate, especially if people are taking left turns there. That will force drivers down here to this mid-block location where it will simply be easier for everyone to see, to have better visibility and predictability when entering and exiting that site. And one additional change is this will also be a right in onto Hendricks and a right out off of Hendricks. And so again, just sort of taking away that option for left turns that add confusion. Now, if it sounds like we're taking away too many options for getting in and out of the site, that will be addressed through completion of a section of Jones Street, the final section of Jones Street, to allow drivers to turn left onto Hendricks, proceed down Jones and over to Dogwood to get out in a safer manner and at the light. So actually completing that off-site street as well. You've seen quite a bit of detail on this site plan, so I will jump ahead to the landscape plan because one piece that is difficult to see in that previous line drawing is all the different landscaping that is proposed here, and that includes dozens of trees that don't exist on the site today, and that's in addition to the street trees that will also be required, as well as the extensive shrubbery. And if you really look, you see those smaller green circles, especially around that trash enclosure, and really making this a very green boundary. And finally, I wanted to place this request in the context of the zoning and planning for this area. The site is currently zoned heavy commercial, and that's in line with the different sites on both sides of this corridor, as well as on both sides of the property. I think I lost my microphone. That district, as the name indicates, is designed to include many different commercial uses, especially for folks in an automobile, as you see there, taken from the code. So the proposed use before you tonight is currently permitted in this district. It is also consistent with the future land use and character map, and as you see here, the site is designated general commercial use. Again, this combines restaurant and automobile services, as well as commercial and lodging uses to conveniently welcome travelers, commuters, and Zebulon residents setting out for the day or coming home. As you heard from staff, the sole reason for this request is to provide some small changes to the site layout and dimensional requirements. And most of those are driven by the need to accommodate this lot with its unusual shape and with its 3 different street frontages. This proposal has the added benefit, in comparison with developing by right under the current zoning, of providing certainty. You know exactly what you're going to get with that approved concept plan. So in summary, the project team is here tonight and is excited to bring Wawa's fresh food and services to Zebulon, to simplify and improve the function of both intersections that are touched by the site, to complete that needed connection through Jones Street to Dogwood Drive, and to add extensive landscaping to a site that has very little in place today. This proposal seeks to fulfill the goals contemplated in the comprehensive plan by bringing a deeply experienced, successful, and beloved business to town. For these reasons, we believe the requested zoning is reasonable and in the public interest. We look forward to our conversation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. At this time, are there any comments or questions? We will take any comments or questions from the board. We will start with Commissioner Rolla.
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Commissioner Baxter.
There is a significant number of deviations that this project is asking of the town. And so can we just go over what is going above and beyond the UDO requirements? Is it just the completion of Jones Street between Hendricks and Dogwood?
So, I mean, there's obviously there's a couple of deviations with regards to this plan development request. Some of it was, yes, it is, the Jones Street portion was one of those conditions that, usually is not required.
Sure.
And Kate can
Commissioner
elaborate
Baxter,
on
I
that.
can answer that question a little bit more. So yes, Jones Street is one of those items that is above and beyond. If you look at the staff recommendation for this project, I'm going to make sure I get the numbers correct, but conditions 1 through 6 and then 15, we've reviewed the site geometry in terms of truck movement, in terms of traffic movement, and we looked at it compared to, what is the market delivering, and what's the best possible product that could be, what's the highest and best use for the site. something new and unique certainly is a highest and best use or a potential highest and best use. And those deviations that have to do with the site geometry enable the site to be built in a way that is compliant with DOT standards and compliant with, what's generally accepted practice in terms of vehicle movement and things like that. Otherwise, staff believes there would be challenges in trying to deliver a single commercial box site like this. You'll see that staff has no opinion on the conditions that relate to the building fenestration and the design of the building. We believe that it has to be a decision of the public through their elected body in terms of do those deviations enable something that is higher and better, or are those deviations not necessary to achieve the project?
Statement again.
Sure. I'll back up. I'll summarize all of that. So there's really the staff recommendation around this is twofold. So one is that we do believe that the geometry of the site warrants some different thinking about how the site could be laid out. And we think that should the board approve the site, that the geometry of the site and the site deviations should be part of that approval. We do not have an opinion as staff on the conditions related to the design of the building itself in terms of the window glazing and so on and so forth. Staff believes that it should be the will of the board in terms of or allowing for those deviations create the ability to implement a highest and best use, or are those deviations unnecessary to achieve the intent of the project?
I'll just add to that real quick. I think when we look at the simplified term of is this project better than the strict interpretation of the ordinance, we're not always looking at the individual items, but whether together it's better than the strict interpretation. And so that's part of the question that staff has for you tonight and staff has for the planning board tonight, is to help make that recommendation on whether those deviations meet a use that is going to go beyond what would otherwise be permitted on this site.
So there seems to be quite a significant decrease in the percentage of what is visually transparent with this project. And I am also concerned by the large increase in the sign fasage from 64 square feet to 93 square feet. And does that fit with aesthetic? I also would like to know, because it wasn't specifically gone over, on the, I'm understanding it correctly, the stormwater control measures are going to be on the most southeastern point of the project? I would assume, because that just seems like that's where there's the most area left.
Regarding the signage and all that, that might be a better, that's a question that the applicant can better address, because
That wasn't a question for you. That was a statement.
Yeah.
My question was actually about where the stormwater control measure was located. Okay.
Sorry, JP Efforth with Kinley Horn, civil engineer. Question is, where's the stormwater control management? So the underground detention that's going to be proposed is in the parking lot on the plan right side. Thank you. In the parking lot. And so, sorry.
Could you lift your microphone up so that I didn't hear you at all?
No, it's not.
Is it on?
Hold on.
Did I mute it?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. I won't move from this spot. So looking at, I forgot, I have a laser. Is it the middle button here? Oh, here. So this underground stormwater detention is proposed underneath this parking lot right here, with some of the stormwater site being piped underneath and then exiting into the DOT infrastructure along Arendo Avenue. There's two outfalls, one that goes to the underground and out here, and then other storm infrastructure that exits on this end due to site constraints and cover.
So since this is going to be traveling into an underground drainage facility before it goes into the stormwater infrastructure, being that it is a site where there is a high likelihood that there is going to be increased chance of fuel spillage in the area and potentially having fuel washed into the underground containment, how is that containment going to remove any oil or fuel from the system before that water makes it into the stormwater drainage system?
Yes, so as the water is detained, and I guess I'll mention, in the existing condition, there's no on-site stormwater infrastructure at all. All of the rain sheet flows off into the 3 adjacent roads. And in the new development, it goes underground detention, and then anything on top floats and is skimmed off. So when it is removed, it's not all flowing down with the stormwater.
There is there's skimming apparatus that will remove the oil?
So water quality is addressed inside the stormwater system as well. So sediment, other pollutants are not flowing into the infrastructure along with all the stormwater.
So what do you anticipate, and this is not a question for you, but you're welcome to stay up here because I don't know what you know or what you don't know, so maybe it is a question for you. I'd like to know what the salary or the pay of the lowest paid employee is anticipated to be.
So I can't speak for our operations department, but I will say this. We offer very competitive wages. Most of our employees are full-time, long-term employees that stay with the company much longer than you would see with average convenience store. It's not only our competitive wage that we offer, but it's also the employee stock ownership program. That's very unique to Wawa. And all of these are incentives for our employees to stay with the company. It's what helps us build that community trust and that community devotion is because that's the same employees are there building that connection with our employees. So while I can't give you a specific number, I will tell you we're very competitive in our base pay, but we also include 401k, full health insurance, and employee stock ownership for any employee, for all employees that work at the store.
Okay, so you don't have a range right now?
I do not have a range right now.
Okay, all right, cool, thanks. And so my concerns are surrounding the size of the sign facing, and then the large percentage of the visual transparency on the 3 sides of the building. I think that I noticed 3 sides of the building were addressed with that. Those are my main concerns.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Baxter. Commissioner Adams?
Yes, I have one question. And may I have missed it during the presentation? EV charging stations, is that something that was spoken? Oh, I apologize. EV charging stations, is that something that you guys are doing as well too?
So happy to answer that question as well. Wawa is actually the largest provider of Tesla EV charging stations. We're Tesla's largest partner across the country, and we offer more EV charging spaces. Whether we'll offer them specifically at this location, I can't answer right now because we rely on our partners to tell us if they will put an EV charging station in. So when a site is approved, we present the site to Tesla and a couple of other EV partners that we have. And if there's any interest, then we will put EV charging stations in the site.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams, you good? Is that the only, you good? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Davis?
I just wanted to ask in regard to the number of deviations from the UDO, is this something, is this in particular, and I'm asking for the applicant, are this a number of deviations to fit the typical standard of the look and the layout of a Wawa? Or is this to fit in particular the layout for the town of Zebulon? Like, my question basically is why are there so many deviations from the UDO that you're requesting?
Can y'all hear me? Okay. Specifically to the building or the overall project?
Correct, the overall project.
For the overall project, the site geometry is the largest constraint, so it's fitting to what's there. Specifically with the 3 abutting streets and then the tractor trailer truck movement. That's why the canopy has to be in front of the building. We worked with the planning team with a number of different concepts and found that the canopy being between the building and Arundel was the best possible option and really the only possible option for proper site circulation, pedestrian safety, and truck circulation. I can speak to the driveway location, as that's another condition. You can see in the aerial on the screen, this is the Sonic is already there, or sorry, Domino's is already here, and their driveway's slightly off from ours, and we're slightly off from this facility as well. And we looked into other driveway placements to be directly across from this facility, as well as from the Domino's, and the traffic circulation was proven to be most fluid with this location because truck movements coming straight from the loading zone in the back. So trucks are perceived to go down Arundel, onto Pierce's, and right into the site. And this fluid straight movement allows proper visuals for all drivers involved, where if the truck is actively moving and trying to turn, other cars are not going to be stopped in a turning movement with a driveway in this location. So that's there.
I'll just add, with respect to the building itself, the transparency and the articulation, those concepts often work very well for a larger or medium-sized building where you have public areas or office areas, things like that. For a building like this one, functionally speaking, when you have transparency, that implies you're in a public area of a building like this one, right? So where they're providing well-appointed restrooms that people want to use, where they're, people come in there for, their cold beverages, and there's a lot of refrigeration, things like that. Those things are very difficult to match up with transparency, right? So those are areas that need to be sort of hidden away. And so the public areas, obviously, you saw, will have the transparency there as well. It just is it's a difficult fit for this building type and size. If one wanted to expand that public area, you'd simply be, sort of inefficiently expanding a building really driven by that standard rather than the needs of the building. So that's one piece of it, and the articulation is similar in that respect, where you're just creating additional building to meet that standard.
In the building, and you might be the one to answer this question. If you can go back to that previous slide. We are going from 4 entrances into this gas station down to 2. I understand you're talking about putting a median to keep the traffic flowing only to the direction of the right. Is this the traffic impact? I guess what I'm concerned is how many turns, if I'm coming down Pierce's Road, that I have to make in order to enter into the gas station. So is this truly, I guess my question, the best way to only have 2 entrances instead of the complete 4 that we already have?
Good evening, Laura Rakesh with Kimley Horn, traffic engineer. Yes, we went through a series of negotiations with NCDOT to tried to gain as much access as we could to the parcel, but they have come back and restricted us to the 2 driveways, with the one on Pierce's being restricted. And you've pointed out a good point. Coming from Pierce's, I think we have about 15% of our traffic that would be destined to come in, and they are the most inconvenienced. And maybe the Wawa will not listen, but they'll probably maybe go to Sheets instead or something. They're, turn right, where they can turn right into somewhere. Otherwise, they're going to have to go around and then end up coming in maybe at where the Sonic driveway is. All these parcels are interconnected behind the Domino's and the Wake Med. Fortunately, all those are all interconnected to the back. Or if you're, or you can loop around and get to Jones Street. And that was, critical to make the Jones Street connection in the back, and in conjunction with Cookout Development, to get that traffic back to the interchange, but then also have a, a way for the lefts to make into the site.
Okay. I'm just wondering, even honestly, from a competitive standpoint as a business, if have easier access to 2 other gas stations neighboring, would this draw people away from your site? If I can make a quicker entrance into a Sheets or a 7-Eleven close by, so just even from a business standpoint, wondering if that's the best.
You're exactly correct. 75% of the traffic that go to gas stations is pass-by traffic, and so it's usually, on the way home type trips, and the most easier, the easiest move in and out, most convenient. So 25% what we say is, a destination trip, which, somebody leaves and actually is coming there. So, but no, you make an excellent point.
Okay. My last question. The gentleman stated that Wawa has a lot of community investment. With community investment, is that something that would directly impact the town of Zebulon? Is this just something that Wawa does overall that goes out to not in particular communities, but just throughout? Or is this things that you guys would do that would directly impact our town?
We will absolutely directly work with organizations within the town and support their organizations. So we will support typically the local, with our food share program. We support the food banks in the area. We work with the local community organizations, whether it be the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, if there is one here. In military towns, we work with the local USO. So once we get into the community, we will contact local organizations and offer our support. We have our national partners, as was shown on the slide, but we also absolutely work with local organizations.
Okay.
We feel that's part of being a good neighbor, is connecting with the local organizations.
Yeah, that's something that's major for the town of Zebulon. We are constantly contacting our local businesses for partnership, sponsorship, and that. So that caught my attention. It's something I want to make sure that you guys will look to impact our town.
I'd like to be a good neighbor, and we'll absolutely work with the town and the town's community and the organizations.
Okay, on top of knowing somebody can get married there, too. Thank you, sir. Those are my questions.
Because the Wawa wedding is something that will never be forgotten here in the town of Zebulon. Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Mayor Pro Tem?
No, ma'am. No questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll now take questions from the Planning Board. Mr. Perez, any questions?
Yes. I see that for the trucks, like trailers, 18-wheelers, you're going to go around Dortwood, Jones, and Hendricks to get inside or going out?
Going out, yes. So all the, I said truck movements are anticipated, let's get the right button, coming in the Pierce's Road driveway, through the site, and then out onto Hendricks, and then up to Jones, and eventually out to Dogwood.
That's also for the fuel?
Yes, sir.
That's it.
That's okay. Thank you. Ms. Jenkins?
Yes. Will the Wawa open 24 hours?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the proposed project timeline for completion?
the planning board and the commissioners have a big say in the timeline completion. Once it's get permitted and approved, we work with our developer partners, in this case Capital Growth Bookwalter. They will get the project through permitting, and then they do some preliminary site work for us. That can take anywhere from a year to a year and a half, 2 years. And then once our developer partner turns the site over to Wawa, Wawa's typical construction time frame to build the actual building is about 7 months, 6 to 7 months.
Ms. Naya?
Condition 4 and the deviation from that, is that for visibility? For condition 4? Is that, why are you going from the 15-foot to 10-foot? Is that something specific?
This is the landscape buffer on Hendricks.
Yeah.
That's site geometry. So if we're looking at the site plan, having 28-foot roads is our standard for allowing for truck movements, and then proper parking spaces. So it's site geometry is for the reduction, and then you can see that we're fitting in as much landscape as we can to kind of make up for that shorter buffer right there.
And then for the employees, since you're coming from the Mid-Atlantic, I just wanted to know, do you have a union?
Most Wawa locations do not have a union. Wawa does have a dairy operation. We supply our own milk and other products. That dairy operation is unionized. It's based out of the Philadelphia area. But most of our associates are not union members. But I'll go back to the benefits that Wawa offers to its associates. All of them corporate employees, and all of them get the same benefits that the corporate folks get, that I get: health insurance, 401k, sharing, employee stock ownership. It's all included in their pay package.
And I don't know if you answered this question earlier, but how many would you have in a staff here in Zebulon?
Typical store is about 40 employees.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. 40.
So a lot of this, one of the conditions is to complete Jones Street, which is contingent on a portion of Jones currently being developed by others, but that does not say that that portion is completed by others. If there are delays with the Cookout development and the completion of Jones, that kind of puts this whole design into
Jeopardy?
peril.
Peril?
Yeah, because that's the whole movement of trucks and traffic and all of the medians and everything that you're proposing. So if there are delays or Cookout decides we're not, what do we do now? Is Wawa prepared to complete that all the way up to Dogwood? Because that is the whole crux of movement at this intersection.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lowry.
Hi, Kirk Farrelly. I'm with Capital Growth Buckhalter. We're the developer property owner. And that's a very good question, and we would continue working with Matt, who has a handle of working with the other developments in the area. And if there's a development agreement or a reimbursement agreement we would get from the Cookout property owners or anyone who else comes after that, we would work through that, but we wouldn't let that prevent us from making sure that we can complete those movements.
You said you would not.
We would work through staff. I don't know logistically as of this moment
How it would work,
go,
somebody pays for it, you get reimbursed or whatever the case may be is what you're saying, but you would make sure that this is completed before we have certificate of occupancy, before they open their doors.
Yeah, so like Paymon was saying, we're for the upfront horizontal portion, so there will be plenty of time where we're getting through permitting with the town of Zebulon, city of Raleigh, doing our final DOT encroachment permits. and then completing the horizontal improvements, building demos, all these things will add up, and over that time, we'll work with Matt and the staff to get those logistics done. But no, it's not uncommon to have development agreements where somebody comes first because there's another project delay. It all gets.
No, I understand. I just see by others, and then I get concerned that, you guys are talking like timelines, I'm ready to roll, and we haven't seen any development from this others, and
I drove by today to see if it was done. It's not.
I don't even see how you're delivering fuel to your site if it's not there. So, and that's a big concern. Traffic in that corner is, for lack of a better word, a nightmare. And so I understand that you're trying to improve that corridor a little bit.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure that if this is approved, that we have that in place for the safety of the residents of Zebulon.
It's mutual. It's critical for us, and it's critical for y'all. So we'll find the way.
That's all I have.
Chairman Lowry, if I can just quickly make a clarification. We do already in the UDO have many of the mechanisms that the applicant has described in terms of delivering things like a pioneering agreement or so on and so forth. And so there's...
Matt, can you speak into your microphone?
Speaking of the microphone? So within the UDO, we already have a lot of the mechanisms that the applicant has described. And so whatever mechanism is appropriate would be the appropriate one to deliver the project. I mean, that's something we'd work through in the construction drawing phase.
Yeah, I just wanted it to be very clear to everybody in the planning board, board of commissioners, the audience, anybody listening at home, before this site, if it were to be developed, before it's allowed to open, Jones Street will be complete to Dogwood and Hendricks, and we will have movement on that backside. So it is now clear that that is what we would have if we are to allow this redevelopment. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alcee?
Yes. I think the concern for me is
Can you?
more, yeah.
Thank you.
Hope this is better. I think the concern for me is the potential traffic that this may bring, given that Wawa would only have access to 2 entrances. Also, the gentleman actually talked greatly about the benefits that Wawa does offer. So I was wondering, does Wawa have any program that actually will help to better their younger staff situations? For instance, some people may still be in college and need help with college tuitions, or if they do have kids, they may need some sort of assistance to help them. So I was wondering if Wawa does have any of that. And in addition to that, he also mentioned that Wawa does offer some benefits. So I was wondering, are those benefits per pay grade, or is it just something that is similar across the board? I know with some employers, your health insurance deductible for your health insurance is based on your pay grades, and the percentage that the employer does invest when it comes to 401k can also be based on pay grades. I was just wondering how that would benefit, people in the community as a whole.
Sure, thank you.
Specific to the health insurance, it is similar for all employees. We all get the same health insurance options. There's a number of options that we can choose from. I think this last year we had 5 options, and so the employee can choose which plan they want, and it's available to all associates regardless of pay band or pay grade. Your second question about additional support for the associates. Wawa has an internal foundation. It's called the Associated Need Fund, where we support local associates who may be going through a difficult life challenge. It's a big part of what we do for our associates. In addition to that, Wawa, you were mentioning the benefits that's available to all the associates. I think you mentioned maternity leave is something that Wawa offers to our associates. Every associate gets maternity leave. Other benefits, we have mental health benefits. We have substance abuse benefits available and counseling programs available. I'm a Wawa employee, so I speak very highly of it, but it's a wonderful program that all employees, including everyone who works at Wawa, regardless of pay grade, has access to.
Thank you. Good. Okay. Ms. Drake.
Yeah, so I had a question, and I just wanted to get confirmation. I believe you referenced that there would be a divider. Would that be on Hendrick Street? And if so, how does that impact the traffic for the other commercial business that's on the opposite side of the street?
Could you repeat the question real quick?
I believe you indicated that there would be a divider on Hendrick Street. How does that impact the traffic for the patrons coming in and out of the commercial business on the opposite side of the street?
The long-term plan for Arundel is for it to be a wide and 4-lane road, and part of that long-term plan that Matt and his team is going by is that the intersection of Hendricks becomes a right-in, right-out on both sides, and so that's just kind of part of the long-term plan. By making it a right-in, right-out, yes, these businesses, I think WakeMed and Domino's, would be inconvenienced as well. They have the interconnectivity back to the Sonic and to this drive here, or back to Dogwood. So they have some alternatives when this becomes a right-in, right-out in the future. And then on the other side, this blocking of our driveway, I don't think that interferes with anyone else's maneuvers.
So there's only a median on Pierce's?
On Pierce's, but we'll work out some detail with NCDOT about how we enforce right-in, right-out at our driveway. There's another development that's been proposed, I think, across the street, and so a lot of the improvements will have to be coordinated with those guys.
So I guess my biggest concern is if we're doing right in and right out and driving most of the traffic towards Jones Street, and then we have all those other commercial businesses on the back like Sonic and Domino's and 7-Eleven, that's going to be a lot of congestion, especially if you start including your fuel trucks coming in. What are we going to do to address that? Because
there's a secondary improvement that is part of the corridor plan that Matt and his team use, and that is to restripe southbound Pierce's. Right now, that is a extremely heavy movement, and part of that improvement is to make, right now there's only a single left turn, but it's to restripe the other lane and make a left-right lane. And so you would be able to have 2 lefts turning at the same time to head down towards the interstate. So that's kind of the extension of Jones Street, that connection to get over to the interstate, and then also this improvement at the signal are 2 kind of improvements working together to help solve some of the traffic. Again, 75% of the traffic that goes to a gas station is what we call pass-by traffic. It's traffic that's already there, and so it's not new traffic. So that's, a gas station really just takes advantage of the traffic that's going by and kind of siphons them off. Initially, we asked DOT if we could have a right in this short little block. Very difficult to get that to work with our fuel canopy up here, and so we were not able to get that. So we tried to get one more access in there, but they would not now allow it.
And I can speak a little bit to the comprehensive plan aspect of the future of Arundel and Jones Street. So the intent of the North Arundel project is to create a little bit more limited access along the road to actually help with traffic flow, so that when you're going off the highway up to neighborhoods like Weaver's Pond, that you don't have as much competing traffic with the businesses that exist along Arundel. And so part of that is that the completion of Jones Street will really benefit that traffic flow by creating that other option out to the light on Dogwood and Arundel. And so that's part of the comprehensive plan and has been part of the comprehensive plan since its adoption in 2021.
Thank you.
And just real quick, I believe I saw a detail where it was kind of like a concrete triangle that would force the right in, right out. Is that not the case? At Hendricks and North Arundel, right there, I thought I saw a detail in my packet where it showed like a concrete, almost a median to force the right in, right out. Is that not?
We haven't worked out the details with DOT, how they want that to look, and especially in conjunction with, you know, the development across the way. If this redevelops, so we're going to have to work out that detail. The stipulation is it becomes a right in, right out, and so
you're saying the development across the street with the Valero.
That development will have a direct access to the signal, so it's not as burdened if that becomes a right in, right out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair and Ms. Drake, the policy directive, as case described in the comprehensive plan and in the other planning documents that we're chartered to enforce, talk about relieving congestion in ways that don't, ways that can provide public benefit and save the public dollar. And so by moving traffic that would otherwise be local traffic, we call it local traffic because it's visiting local businesses. It's not necessarily traffic just moving through Arundel. By trying to move that traffic off of Arundel onto a more of a grid system, and then having the ability to move that traffic back out to the interchange at 264 without ever having to go on Arundel, relieves congestion. It doesn't solve all of the problems, but it relieves congestion. And it makes for some of the stacking issues on Arundel. It improves some of those stacking issues. The second piece to all of this is that this development doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? There's the Cookout by Right development, which not only has some anticipated improvements on Jones Street, but also does on the Arundel interchange. And then there's the development across the street Mr. Overcash was talking about. And so these are all, the Cookout one is much further along than the other one across the street. But these are all these TIAs, we work with them in unison with each other. And so, our directive is how do we relieve congestion in a way that's most efficient and effective use of the public dollar, and we have control of Jones Street that allows us to move local traffic around for visiting the retail and things like that without having to stack that traffic on Arundel.
You good, Ms. Drake? Yes. All right, thank you. Mr. Smith?
Good evening. First, I'd just like to thank you guys, Wawa and Party, for coming out and being willing to bring your business and partner with our community. So I appreciate you guys being here tonight. I think the board and also the commissioners had really excellent questions. So me being the last person here, I was able to cross off half of my questions already. The first question I do have, though, is for Matt and his staff. So for my own personal, knowledge, please educate me on the significance of this number of deviations. So can I get like a historical baseline on the number of deviations for this type of property previously? Like, is there?
So we have a couple of processes that you'll see in your time as a planning board member. One of which is a strict rezoning, where you're saying, I'm changing this from a residential district to a commercial district. And that just allows the development to follow all the rules of the UDO and develop basically what we call by right, which is that it's already entitled as part of that project. The second rezoning that you'll see is what we call a conditional rezoning. And a conditional rezoning is a rezoning which uses an existing district. So let's say you're going from residential to commercial, right? But then add some deviations from what would be required by the ordinance. And there's only so many things that you can deviate from within that conditional rezoning. And so that's related to any sort of site design standards, landscaping, different elements like that. what's before you tonight is a plan development. So plan development is our most intense rezoning in the sense that the developer is tasked with creating a new district. And so with that, it allows some variation from what would otherwise be required. But at the same time, what we're asking of the developer is to set what those standards will be for this new site, right? And so part of what has been provided to you is that plan development narrative, which lists out, here's how we are going to represent our site. Here's the rules that we have to follow. So what are our setbacks? What is our lot size? How does that play into what would be required under a commercial district, right? How does that relate? And then additionally, the applicant is able to propose conditions. And those conditions can be both deviations, which are things that vary from what the ordinance will require. And sometimes those can be things that go beyond what the ordinance requires, right? So think about the Jones Street connection, which would not otherwise be required by the ordinance with the location of this site. And so part of the plan development request is to really look at, all right, what's being proposed and how do those deviations work together to create a product, right? And that product being Wawa in this case. And so the reason why they went down the path of plan development versus going down a conditional rezoning is because they were asking from some variations that are relating back to architectural standards, which can't be varied from under a conditional rezoning. And so that rule is to kind of protect the town, to have a little bit more of an intense, thought-out process with the plan development process versus the conditional rezoning process, but also requires now that Wawa provide that full narrative and talk about what does this district look like. And so tonight, that's what you're looking at. And then as far as the deviations go, different plan developments can have different levels of deviation. And sometimes those deviations are not always listed in the way that you see them in the packet, right? But rather are baked into how the conditions are made for the plan development request. And so it may be, often with residential, we will see smaller lot size, right? Stuff like that. And so that's just part of the typical plan development request that you'll see is just those small variations that kind of work together to create a larger project that wouldn't otherwise be entitled under the code.
Okay. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we don't have any kind of historical baseline for
some baseline. The town has only
this,
recently started applying plan developments to single pad commercial sites. This was, when I saw there's 15, that's about what I expected. I would say that that's typical,
right.
Both in terms of what I've seen in this market and in other markets that I've worked in. Plan developments are often used by home builders for large master plan communities, and if you were to go break out those proposals in terms of deviations, it could be 20, 30, 40.
Sure.
And so for these single pad commercial sites, what we received is, based on my experience, what should be expected. And then you can see in the staff recommendation, I think the conditions are, there's two sets of them, right? There's one that directly responds to the geometry of the site, moving the site, and then there's one that set of conditions that respond to asks from the developer in terms of architectural standards. So.
Okay, thank you. I asked that, I guess, essentially what it boils down to is trading the economic value that Wawa is bringing for, approving this deviation. So I just want to understand the significance of having this many. My next question was about the traffic analysis impact analysis. Has that been completed with North Carolina Department of Transportation, or is that still in progress? And I'm worried about...
Yeah, it's about 400-page document. It's been approved by NCDOT. Yep.
I guess many people asked this already, but with the drive-through, with the pumps and that kind of stuff, has there been an answer to how this is going to affect traffic by percentage-wise, or how do they break it down with this? How is it going to affect traffic? I mean, what are we doing? I hear what we're doing to address it, but what is it? What are the effects of it, of traffic?
We do traffic impact studies. We work with the town and DOT to make sure we incorporate other developments that are going on, a lot of development going on in Zebulon. So we included, I think it was 9 different other developments. So we take their traffic, we include that traffic. We put a growth rate on the background traffic volumes after we go out and collect the traffic. So you're trying to, do the most conservative analysis you can. And then once you go through that analysis, then DOT, we share all the traffic files, all the models that we do, we give all that to DOT and they review it. And then they come back with a set of recommendations and we kind of negotiate from there.
So has that been completed with them? Have they come back yet, or is it still in progress?
Yes, that's been completed. Okay. And that's what you've seen today in the PowerPoint reflects negotiations with NCDOT.
And we gave a condensed version of the TIA just because the TIA had a number of different studies in it, and it was going to take so much printing power on our end. But if you would like a copy of that, we do have a copy of the full TIA. And additionally, in your packet, you should have those comments from DOT in the form of a letter as well. And I can't recall what page that's on, but I'm happy to look at that as well and get that to you before the meeting, before your next meeting.
Thank you. The last thing that I have is it's mainly a comment, I guess, with a rhetorical question. So everyone knows that's one of our main corridors. And listening to some of the deviations tonight, I guess the canopy has to go up front, and I guess that's for practical, functional reasons. I get that. It being one of our main corridors, it's going to drastically, in my opinion, change. We start doing things like that, the landscape aesthetic of that corridor, right? Sheetz has already have their canopy in front, so we already done it once sometime in the past, apparently. And I guess the question that I don't necessarily need an answer to you right now, it's just something to think about. Having to approve this, what kind of precedent does that set for anybody else coming on, especially on that corridor on that street, right? It's probably Sheetz has canopy out front. If this gets approved, it's gonna be out front. So the next person is probably going to be likely the same way. So I just think about, I guess, the design aesthetics and also, I guess, the safety of the employees with the pumps out front, not being able to see from the road, that kind of thing,
So I will mention, kind of going back to your question about precedents, we have two other gas stations that have come before the board in either a form of a conditional rezoning or a plan development, one of which was Sheetz redevelopment, which came in back in October, I think. And then prior to that, the 7-Eleven also went through a conditional rezoning process. And so what we're finding with the ordinance is that there's a number of gas stations that have kind of come before the board, and often we see those with gas stations that have double or triple frontages, and so it's just part of kind of finding that balance within the ordinance.
Yeah, I would say that to address your question related to precedents, I think that everybody's entitled to due process, and there has always been a precedence that a developer is entitled to pursue a planned development. What makes this site and some of the other sites that Kate has mentioned similar is the multi-frontage point of the site. Right. We do have a gas station project in our system that's by right now that doesn't have a multi-frontage, and they did not need to pursue this. And so I think from a precedence perspective, everybody's entitled to due process and to the same process itself. But I think that each site still needs to be judged on its own merits.
Right. Agreed. Thank you. And thank you again, Wawa, for thinking about us. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have one more question from the board. Commissioner Baxter.
So just recently, the town of Zebulon launched our sustainability board, and as part of that, we are pursuing our membership within Bee City USA. And so I would like to invite Wawa to join us in our protection endeavors. So I would like to ask you if you would consider supporting us by pledging that at least 50% of the plantings that you put out with your borders and your buffers be pollinator-friendly plants.
We will certainly work with the town and with the planning staff. If it's possible, if we can help in that way, we'll absolutely consider it.
Feel free to go 100%. 50 to 100% would be phenomenal. Thank you.
We have one more. Oh, anybody else from the board? Any more questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Roa. Sorry. Okay.
Director Lauer, I think it would be helpful to put into perspective the application if the applicant brought back what the estimated cost would be to finish that side street, what it would cost to do the road frontage work, what it would do to do the entrances, because like Mr. Smith asked, when weighing like the pros and cons of a site, it seems a lot of the questions were asked, a lot of the deviations that they came up with was because of the shape of the location. It wasn't like a perfect square, so they had to do some of those to make it fit. At least that's my understanding, Director Lauer, you tell me. But weighing what the highest and best use of that lot, it's really expensive in terms of development with that much road frontage. So not getting a national client like them to come here, it would be difficult to develop that lot into something else. Our UDO is going to dictate that whoever buys it must develop it, but maybe getting the numbers to show would kind of address, I think, what Commissioner Baxter asked was, well, there's all these deviations. What is the benefit that we're getting? You might be able to quantify that a little more. But overall, I think I like the plan. I think there's a lot of traffic concerns from the town because traffic has increased and it's gone up incrementally, and now it's exponential in the short time I've been here. So that's just something to be very sensitive about. So that's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir. Chair?
Yeah, I just had one further comment. I really appreciate that you have brought this before us. I do pass by this site on a daily basis, and I will, for those of you that don't pass by this site on a daily basis, it has not been maintained over the years as well as it could have been, and there are not plantings there. The one thing that I will say that I will miss will be Sunset Slush, because they do have the picnic tables and it brings a sense of community there. And I encouraged Wawa during a virtual meeting to bring some kind of picnic tables or something to the site so we can keep that community spirit at that corner. Whether it happens or not, the development of that corner, I think, could greatly increase the beautification of that area. That unfortunately over the years was not developed in the best way possible. So I applaud Wawa for what they're bringing to the town, and I hope that we can all agree on this bringing about some much improved development of that area.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the Board of Commissioners? Someone said something. Oh, any other questions from the Planning Board?
I just wanted to make a comment that I do appreciate what you're doing for the employees with Wawa and how you are providing full benefits. I think that is a step up for our town. When it comes to like the service that you're in, the food service and retail and what this service is, I think that that's really great. So I just wanted to say thank you for Wawa for looking out for their employees.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the Planning Board? All right. Thank you. Before we open the public hearing, let me restate our guidelines. The public hearing is the opportunity for the public to express thoughts, ideas, concerns, and opinions regarding the proposed request to the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Board. The Board of Commissioners, Planning Board, staff, and applicant will not engage in dialogue at this time. If the public has questions pertaining to the development, please contact town staff or the applicant following the joint public hearing. At this time, I will open the public hearing. Would anyone like to share comments in favor of this project? If so, please line up at the podium to my left. Left, yes. Okay. All right, hearing none. Would anyone like to share comments in opposition of this project? If so, please line up at the podium.
Here. My name is Dominic Schilling. I live at 207 Nostalgia Lane here in Zebulon. I am not necessarily against this proposal, but I have several mixed comments about it, I guess. I do have concerns about traffic. That's always number one. I am particularly, where I live, worried about that right in, right out on the Pierce's roadside, because what currently happens is people coming out of the current strip mall that's in there or the Waffle House, because they have trouble making a left turn to get back to Arundel, they make a right turn and then they make a left turn into my neighborhood and do a turnaround to get back out. And I just see that increasing with this proposal, because they're not going to be able to make a left turn out of Wawa. So they're going to have to go right, and if they want to come back left, they're going to have to do a turnaround. It's particularly concerning. I'm the president of the HOA. Our street is a private street, so we're responsible for the maintenance of that street. And we've all noticed, I have several of my neighbors here now, an increase in the turnaround traffic just with the other development that's gone on and with the businesses that are already there. So I do have a traffic concern about that. It's also a lot of turning movements in a very confined space. I know we all know that. My number one question was going to be about how do we know for sure Jones Street was going to be completed? So I'm glad to hear there's at least some assurance there. On the flip side, I want to say I grew up in one of those mid-Atlantic states. I like Wawa. So when Lori and I travel, we usually do try to stop where there is a Wawa. So I'm not opposed to Wawa. But I think it also brings up a larger question, just is another gas station, what's the best thing for that spot? We already have 3 gas stations within a quarter-mile stretch of road right there. I have not heard one person that I've talked to or seen on social media or anywhere say, gosh, it would be nice if Zebulon had one more gas station in that little stretch. It's not. People want restaurants, people want coffee shops, people want things for kids to do. There was a proposal about a year ago to have a gym go right in that parcel right next door. Was there any thought to maybe the gym being allowed to move into this parcel? I'm all for Wawa coming to Zebulon. I think there's a need for another gas station / convenience store over on the other side of town near the stadium. I just don't think we need another gas station. We don't need 4 gas stations in a quarter-mile stretch. Nice as it might be, as good as it might be for the community, again, I welcome Wawa to come to the community. I just don't think that's the right spot for it, for a number of different reasons. Thank you all for the time. You've all asked like every one of the questions, or at least.
Sorry.
That's okay. You've all answered or asked at least some of the questions that I had, so I thank you all for that too. And I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any others wishing to speak in opposition? Are there any neutral comments regarding this project? If so, please line up at the podium and share your name and address. neutral, neither in opposition or for? In favor or in opposition? Hearing none. Mr. Clerk, are there any comments submitted via email that need to be read into the record?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have a few to be read. Let's see. I won't try to identify what category they fall in, just the fact that they were submitted to us. The first one is from a Stephanie Duffinius, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So, to whom it may concern, this is Stephanie Duffinius. I am a resident of the Wakelawn Townhome Community on Purses Road. I'm very much against the proposed Wawa going up near my home. The noise and traffic from the Sheetz gas station already creates chaos and numerous traffic accidents. It also creates difficulty getting in and out of the neighborhood. The Wawa would create so many more traffic hazards, not only on Purses Road, but also Arundel. The intersection is already dangerous. More traffic from an additional volume of impatient drivers trying to get in and out of a service station would be a nightmare and affect the quality of life for all the residents and businesses in this small area. This would also make 4 gas stations within a half-mile of each other, 3 of them on the same side of the road. The infrastructure at this location is not in place to handle such traffic. I'm sure there has to be a bigger, safer location in our town for this company. Sincerely, Stephanie Duffinius. The next one is from Emily Blackwell. She says, the proposal for a new Wawa at the corner of Purses Road and Arundel Avenue is extremely unsupported. As a resident of the Wakelawn Townhomes neighborhood, a large commercial center such as Wawa would drastically increase traffic at this already heavily congested intersection and make it even harder to get out of my neighborhood. There are already 3 other gas stations within a very close distance, so we don't need another gas station. Also, as Wawa is usually open 24/7, the additional noise and lights would add to the distraction. Sheetz is directly across the street, and there are many other fast food options within close proximity, so the addition of yet another mediocre food source is not needed or wanted. Also, putting Wawa in would require destruction of the strip mall, which would negatively impact the town's support of the small businesses that are already there. I'm not particularly interested in having Wawa in Zebulon at all, but at least please do not put Wawa in that location. Sincerely, Emily Blackwell. The next one is from Karen Underhill. It says, Town of Zebulon. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend, this is a bit dated, she said Monday's meeting about the above subject, but I do have concerns. I live in the Wakelawn subdivision off of Pierce's Road, and we have a difficult time exiting and entering our homes daily because of the increased traffic. There are numerous accidents, people running the lights plus debris in the road. There will be more if Wawa comes. Why do we need another gas station in the vicinity of 3 others? 4 if you count the one on Proctor and Pierce's. These roads are not, and then her email ended. And then the last one I have is Miss Paula Barton. Said, good morning. I have concerns or questions about this project and would like the board to address them. The road and intersections within the area are already inadequate for the current traffic. Improvements must be made before further developments of the surrounding properties. When and how will these needed improvements be funded? There are already 3 stations in the immediate area. Why do we need a 4th? I appreciate this chance to communicate and comment. Sincerely, Mrs. Barton. I did have a 5th message from the community, but Mr. Schilling already spoke this evening, and he was the other one. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And thank you, everyone, for your comments. At this time, I will close the public hearing and refer this matter to the Planning Board for their consideration. Thank you. Next up, we have, we are going to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. I can't even move right now. I had to go. Whatever.
a desire for flexibility and support for food trucks downtown, balanced with concerns of noise and safety, and some feedback that we've received from downtown businesses during the daytime shopping hours and weekdays. So staff recommends opening the public hearing for the text amendment. After the public hearing and discussion close, refer the matter to the planning board for considerations. And now I'll take it back to the mayor for questions from the board.
Director Lauer, are there any questions from the board? Commissioner Baxter?
Yes, this text amendment does not touch base on the usage of generators. And one of the things that we have noted several times across the years are the noise and the air pollution that generators create. And when we went through the process of discussing the mobile food vendor text amendment in the past, we had discussed and the planning board approved unanimously moving all mobile food vendors onto Horton Street so that they could use hookups, electric hookups that were provided by the town of Zebulon, so that it would reduce both noise and air pollution in our downtown core. This doesn't address that, and I am still a very big proponent of moving the food trucks off of Arundel and onto Horton.
Thank you, Commissioner Baxter. Commissioner Adams?
Oh, yeah.
Question or concern. I see the hours Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. What about the rest of the week? Is this only for this time frame only? Can we extend it out to like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? So that's just a concern of mine or a question I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Adams, the answer to your question is yes, the will of the board can change what's on your screen. What we've done is we've broken it out this way to be a little more moldable, perhaps, or a little more modular, maybe is a better term. If a proposal from the board becomes substantially different, the staff may recommend we renotice that before it's adopted.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis?
In light of Commissioner Adams' question, we do have on here that it states that the hours of operation are Friday through Saturday from 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. However, we do have some establishments in the downtown area that open until 2 a.m. So I want to have the board take into consideration extending that into 2 a.m. The other consideration is one of those establishments in particular also has operating hours on Wednesday, where they probably have heavy traffic. And so by not including that, that would limit their ability to have food trucks on one of their heaviest nights. So I would like to take into consideration of having this extended from Wednesday to Saturday. Sunday is another extension. It only goes until 8 p.m., but I know that we have an establishment that often has football games, especially on Sunday night football games. So I'd also like to take into consideration that and extending those hours in particular on Sunday till between 10 and 11 p.m. Matt, you also had a discussion when we talked about, for the food trucks in particular, in here it states that they will need to have the food trucks come before the town to receive permits. Can you explain the reason of why that would be necessary?
Sure. So the ordinance requires that food vendor, be them mobile or be them a restaurant operating in the town of Zebulon, has all of the required permits from the other governments in which they need to be permitted from, and largely the county health department, for example. And so by requiring downtown food trucks to pull a permit from us means that we've seen and we can verify that they have the correct health department allowances in place, and it protects the town from a liability standpoint, and it protects the consumer as well, because we want our residents, when they're purchasing food from food trucks, be it in a private parking lot or perhaps downtown, that some confidence that that food truck has been properly vetted and is properly certified.
Right. Question again then. If your food truck needs to have that permit, does the brick and mortar in which they are operating for need to have a permit as well for those food trucks to operate?
In this case, in the downtown right-of-way, yes, because it has to do with space reservation. So if a food truck, if you own a strip mall, for example, and you have a parking lot, by ordinance, you can have food trucks in that strip mall parking lot, but you're limited in terms of the number of food trucks you have because we don't allow food trucks to take up parking spaces that then take away from your required parking amount. And so, for example, there's a strip mall